Bubble.io is an incredibly powerful platform for building no-code apps, and all of its robust tools and capabilities are organized and explained in the Bubble manual. Today, however, I'm going to show you 5 tips you won't find in the manual to make you a smarter Bubble app builder. It's Gabby over at Coaching No Code Apps, where we help non-technical entrepreneurs build custom apps so that they can launch their app-based businesses or grow their existing businesses all without coding. Your Bubble app database is going to evolve over time. This is very normal. We can't anticipate everything from the start, but we can expect that as we build out the app more and more, that things will come up. We might introduce new data types, new option sets. We may change the way relationships between records work. One thing that you want to be careful with as you're updating your data structure is how you go about deleting aspects of the structure, deleting data types, fields, and option sets. I'm going to show you what happens when you delete aspects of your data structure. Let's start with this first text expression here. I'm searching for a list of records in my database. The data type is called appointments, and I'm just counting up how many there are. Now, if I go to my data structure and over to the data types tab and fully delete that type, okay, so I'm going to hit the trash can icon and go back to my design, take a look at how Bubble is now representing the appointments data type. It's going to say deleted in parentheses here. Notice how the issue checker in my app did not flag this. I would not know otherwise. If I'm not checking for these things, I would not know that I have a reference to something that's been deleted. Now, of course, I can restore this data type. I can toggle this open and click on restore, and it'll come back. Okay, so go back to my design. Now it's back to normal. You want to be very careful with deleting any aspect of your data structure. A good practice for you to get in the habit of is to first address all instances of, for example, the appointment data type before you actually delete it. Once something is deleted, you can no longer, create records in the database for it. You can no longer modify values in any existing records, right? It's deleted. So if you aren't addressing and replacing those references before you delete, you could end up with a ripple effect of issues for your app's functionality. You could create weird behaviors for your user's experience. So you want to make sure that you actually address these before you delete them. Bubble will tell you when something's deleted, but it's technically going to think that everything is still correct. It's not going to throw an issue in the issue checker. And with a large application, that could be a really big problem. Let's look at another example here with a deleted field. So right now I have this displaying the current user's first name. So if I go over to the user table and delete the first name field, okay, going back to my expression, you can see right there, Bubble is letting me know that it's a deleted field, but again, no issue in the issue checker. I don't want to maintain references to this deleted field. I've deleted it for a reason. The better thing to have done is to check my application for all references to first name, replace them with whatever I'm doing instead. Maybe it's a different field. Maybe I need to change the approach and how the condition works, the workflow, or just the expression here before I delete it. Okay, I'm going to go back and restore that first name field. So I'm going to toggle this open, hit restore. Now, something interesting happens with the option sets. Here I've got a radio button with the type of choices set to one of my option sets called user type. Okay, so this is all configured to display my user type choices. I'm going to head over to my data tab, then options, and I'm going to delete this set. Okay, so that one's gone. Again, I can restore it if I need to. If I go back to my design, take a look at what happened. Bubble does not show me that this is deleted. In this case, Bubble will reveal an issue. Here it's going to say radio button user type is not a possible option. If I click on this, Bubble will take me to the page if I'm not already on it, and it's going to highlight where that error is occurring. But if I were to just look at the configuration of this radio button alone, right? If I hadn't looked at my issue checker, everything looks normal here. I might be testing out this page and seeing weird behavior. Maybe, the radio button's not behaving properly, or I'm not able to save things to my database. But in inspecting this radio button configuration here, everything looks normal. It doesn't look like there's a problem. And consider the scenario where maybe you have dozens and dozens of issues in your issue checker, and you're not taking the time to go through those different items. You may not notice that there's a problem here. This is why you should get in the habit of first looking throughout your application for any possible references to the thing that you're about to delete first, before you actually delete it. Okay, so I'm going to go back into my option sets and restore this. You're going to see similar situation if you were to delete individual options as well. This works, similar to the fields within a data type. So make sure that you're getting in a really good habit of checking your application before you delete something. And after you have deleted, test your application. Make sure you didn't miss anything. It's always important to test any major structural change like that from top to bottom, start to finish, so that you don't end up with any holes that would negatively impact your user's experience, your app's performance, or the functionality overall. As you get further into your app's development, you're going to find that your pages are going to grow in size. What I mean by this is you'll add more visual elements to your front-end design. You're going to add more workflows. There are going to be more events and actions, all with their own logic, various dynamic expressions, conditions. You're going to create more styles in your application. You're going to add more things to your data structure. It's just inevitable. As you add more functionality, you're just going to build in more into the editor. Now, Bubble has a tool to help you find things in your editor so that you can move through in an efficient way. The app search tool can be found by going to the upper right corner of the editor and indicating how you want to search through the application itself. So for example, if I want to search by element type and choose text, I'm just going to search for it here. If I click on search, it's going to show me all instances in my entire application where I'm using a text element. Doesn't matter what the text content is itself, whether it's static text or dynamic. As long as I'm using a text element, that's what's going to be revealed here in this list. So in this sample application, I have 24 instances of text elements. And you can see that Bubble will show me the page that these elements are on. If I check only search current page, then of course, it's only going to reveal the elements on the page that I'm on right now. So I have these 3 text elements here. I can click on this and it's going to highlight that for me. Now, here's a pro tip for you. Use this app search tool as a checklist. Whenever you are making major structural changes to your app's database, use this as a checklist to find any instances of data types, fields, option sets that you might be changing so that you can address all areas in your app. This is going to be super helpful if you have a really large application. Here's what I mean. Here's an example. On this page, I have 3 different text elements that all refer to the current user's, to the user's first name, not necessarily the current user. This particular expression here is saying current user's first name. In this expression, I'm doing a search of users of my entire user table. I'm going to the first record in that table, so that may or may not be the current user, going to their first name. Here's another instance where I'm referencing that first name. I'm doing a search and I'm filtering on the first name here. So let's say I want to delete that first name field. I'm going to go into my data structure. I'm going to go ahead and delete this field. Here's the problem. If I had not addressed those 3 instances, those first name references are still going to kind of be stuck there. It could create problems for me. Notice that the issue checker only revealed one of my references to the first name field. Right? It was this one here with the search because I can no longer constrain on it. So Bubble was able to remove that for me. The better thing for you to do is before you delete, use the app search tool to find those instances and use them as a checklist for addressing them so that you can replace the old instance, right? If I'm about to delete something, that means that I no longer want these expressions to reference this field. I'm going to change it to something else, or maybe I'm going to end up deleting the element altogether. And this goes not just for elements, but conditional expressions, workflows, aspects of your design, styles that you've added, right? Maybe you're replacing a style in some way. This will work for all of those scenarios. So what I would do instead, let's restore this to kind of reset ourselves here. Before I delete that field, I would pull up the search tool. And here, I don't want to search by element type. That's too generic, right? I could have many, many, many text elements that have nothing to do with that first name field. Instead, I would search by field specifically, okay? And the field is in the user data type. The field itself is first name, right? I could get super specific here. If I uncheck this again, I can search my entire application. So I'm going to search. And I again have 3 instances. It looks like the only place I'm using this is on this page here. Now, if I select this, Bubble's going to highlight it for me. Let's say I want to change this over to my last name. I'm getting rid of the first name field and I only want to use the last name field. Okay, so I'll change it over to last name. This expression is no longer referencing the first name. If I click search again, now I'm down by 1. This is my to-do list. This tells me how many more instances I need to address in some way before I delete that field, so I can safely delete it. And I don't end up with these orphan references pointing to something that's just going to be broken. Click on the next one here. Again, let's switch this out for last name. Click search. Okay, so now I'm down to my last reference. I'm going to click on this again here. So it's highlighting this search where I have the first name in the constraint. So I'll change the constraint over to last name. Let's say last name equals Doe. And I'll remove this constraint, right? I'm addressing it. How you address it just depends on what you're doing. I'm going to search. Now I can safely say I am no longer using that first name field anywhere in my application, so it is safe to delete. This is just one use case of that app search tool that can really help you move through your app's development much more efficiently. So get in the habit of using it, especially as your app starts to grow. Something that's going to help you leverage the app search tool the most is being really consistent with your labels. Make sure you're labeling everything in your editor. I promise it's going to make for a much better development experience. One way to move through your app's development really efficiently is to get comfortable with shortcuts and really finding how you can navigate your editor in as few clicks as possible. One of my favorite shortcuts here in working with the Bubble editor is to right-click on any reference to a visual element, and this includes pages in general, so that you can quickly get to that element. When you have a large application with many different elements designed on the page or many pages in your editor, this can save you a lot of time. Take a look at this example. I have a submit button on my page that is connected to a workflow to navigate the user to a different page in my application, the index page in this case. Let's say that I want to quickly open up that page. This is especially helpful if my application has dozens of pages, and we've certainly worked with those apps with our own clients. So instead of pulling open the page drop-down list and hunting down that page, all I need to do is right-click this action because the action references the page, and click Reveal the Element. Bubble will immediately take me to that page. Okay, so it's really great to go from a workflow to another page when that page has been referenced. Here's another example. This text element is referencing the button. Okay, the text element is displaying in a dynamic way the button's width, okay, the actual size, the width of that element, that visual button. So if I had many buttons on my page and I had this text, not next to it, if it was just living somewhere else and I needed to confirm which button I'm talking about, or just in general, open up the property editor of the button, I need to find it. Instead of going into the element dropdown to search for it by name, or in my elements tree where I could potentially have dozens and dozens of elements, again, all I need to do is right-click on the expression since it's referencing that visual element and click Reveal the Element. And there, Bubble will pull it up and highlight it for me. We have another example here. This text, click here to show a pop-up. It's a static text. This is also connected to a workflow that is going to show a pop-up that I have on my page. Okay, just to show you here, we've got a pop-up right there. So again, I can right-click this action and reveal the element. Okay, so it's not just the show action. It's not just the go to page. It's not just the width expression. The common thread here is that all of these different components, whether they're expressions or workflow actions, they're referencing a visual element. And when you find yourself in that scenario, try right-clicking it it was this one over here. Try right-clicking it to see if you have this option to reveal the element. That way it'll take you right to it, and it does save you a number of clicks. It might not seem like it from these simple examples, but imagine having a large application. This is going to save you a lot of clicks over time and help you move through the editor much more smoothly compared to having to hunt down those elements manually. Adding plugins to your Bubble application will open a world of new possibilities in your development. A lot of plugins will introduce new visual elements to your design canvas, or you may have new workflow options to choose from. There are literally hundreds of different plugins that you can work with. Some are free, some are premium, but it really does extend your editor's capability. Now, it's really important to be able to manage these plugins. Plugin developers will, over time, make improvements to the plugin. They may introduce new features for the plugin, or they might fix bugs, right? If something's not working, they may create a correction and introduce a new version for that plugin. So you need to understand what is the best approach around managing these plugins as they get updated. Take a look at this plugin that we have installed in our application. You can see on the left-hand side, next to the plugin name, Bubble is telling us that there is an upgrade available. So when that happens, what you want to do is go into the plugin settings, right? Select the plugin here and go over to this dropdown, right? Currently installed version, it's going to tell us what we're currently on. You click on this, you'll see all of the versions that have been deployed for this plugin. So we're not on the latest version for this particular one. If we were to click on 2.4, now we've updated the plugin. You can see that Bubble says latest version, we're good to go. And the message on the left-hand side also went away. So that's easy enough. That's how you upgrade your plugin. You can also go back to a previous version. So I can revert back to the 2.3. The best practice around upgrading plugins is, number one, you want to make sure that you're on the latest version whenever possible. Typically, the latest version is going to be the most supported by the plugin developer. It's going to be the latest working one where improvements have been made, new features are introduced, okay? And it's going to have the most up-to-date documentation more often than not. But it is still your responsibility to understand what the update is going to do in your application, what impact it will have. Now, if you're installing a plugin for the first time, you will automatically be placed on the latest version. But if you've used a plugin and implemented it into your application, and later on you notice that there's an update available, take note of the upgrade description. In some cases, it might be a minor non-breaking change, meaning it's not going to affect how functionality worked before. That makes it safe to update immediately. So here in this example, minor updates to data source names. Okay, so it's just a labeling update that happened here. Very safe. It's not going to change how the plugin works in the app. There are other descriptions where you'll see here bug fix. Those are ones that you want to watch out for. Maybe you weren't using an area of the plugin where there was an issue. Maybe you were, or maybe upgrading to the bug fix version may change the way that the plugin works in your app, as with any other updates that talk about introducing new things. So I suggest to you, whenever you update, test the application, test the usage of the plugin to make sure everything still works. You don't want to get stuck in a situation where everything was previously working. You said, oh, okay, I'm going to upgrade because I just want it to be on the latest version. And now you have a ripple effect of issues. Okay, just because there's a new version does not mean that it's going to continue working properly in your app. So make sure that you do your homework, you understand what the upgrade is going to do in your application. You don't have to be on the latest version if that version's not working for you. Be on the one that is going to work for you the best, but be mindful of what does have updates available, because they may be better supported and they may introduce better functionality for you in the long run. Organization is key when it comes to developing an efficient and scalable application on Bubble. And this couldn't be more true when it comes to the way you label things. Everything from your data components, your option sets, fields, data types, to the front end visual elements, your containers, your text, your pop-ups, and also your workflows. So here's a tip that I like to share with all of our clients, and now I'm sharing them with you on a really fun way, but also very useful method to organize the way you label things. It's going to make things really easy to identify. Take a look. So here we are in our data structure, and we're going to insert emojis into our data type name. So this is the first use case. Okay, we're going to actually do this in many different places in the editor here. I'm on a PC. This also works for Mac. On PC specifically, it's going to be Windows period, and we'll pull up this little library. And for my appointment data type, if I want to insert some kind of a calendar emoji, I'll select that one there. And Bubble is going to include this everywhere we see the data type name. Of course, in the data types tab here, in app data, in my design, if I have an expression that's referencing it, you can see it in the elements tree, in the element lookup list right here. Anywhere you see the data type name, that emoji is going to come with it because it's a part of the name. So like I said, for Windows computers, the shortcut is the Windows key, and you want to hold down the period key with it. For Mac computers, it's Control Command Space. Okay, you want to hold down all three of those keys, and that keyboard will come up so that you can select your emojis and add them in. So here's another use case for this. I'm going to add next to conversation thread. I'm going to pull up my keyboard. I'm going to do an envelope, right? Because this is like a messaging feature. And I can also copy this emoji just like a regular text character, go into my message data type and just paste it. So I'm just using Control C and V, just like I would copy and paste any text. And here's one of the benefits of adding an emoji to the front. Bubble will naturally sort your data types and your fields in alphabetical order. I may have, over a dozen data types in here, and some data types might be related to one another, but they may not appear next to each other in the order of, how I want them to be grouped. But if I put the same emoji next to in front of the name, that's a really helpful way for me to group my data types, because Bubble is now alphabetizing them by the emoji. And if we're, ordering them with the same emoji, they're going to show up next to each other. You can also add these into your element names. So for example, this button submit, I can put, let's do like a check right here, right? So that's going to show up in the name of the element. Again, anywhere you see these labels, they will also appear. If you had a group element, right, you can put an emoji in front of that, and it can help you organize your elements tree and really see how things are nested within one another based on some kind of a visual, illustration. Same thing for your workflows and your workflow folders. So I can come into here, and this is a click. Let's see if I can find a mouse click, right, button click, whatever it is. Right, that's going to help me order my sort my workflow events, because Bubble also sorts these alphabetically. Same thing for my folders. So let's say I have, let's just do another check here. This, and we'll say submit flow or payment flow, something like that, right? And it will help you order and visually organize these folders as well. This may not seem like a big deal with these few examples. I have, a pretty blank page here, not very many data types, but it makes a massive difference when you have a much more elaborate editor with many pages, many types, fields, literally dozens, if not hundreds of visual elements on the design. We've certainly seen it with our own clients, and it can make a huge impact in how you move around your editor. Now, these are just 5 tips that will help you become a smarter app builder on Bubble, but there's so much more you can do to power up your skills and your app. And if you're needing help going from idea to pilot launch with your own app on Bubble, and you want a plan, a process, and a structure to ensure that you're doing everything right, apply for a free strategy call at coachingnocodeapps.com/call, where we'll create a personalized roadmap for your app, then see whether you and your app would be a fit to join our private mentorship program. Until then, I hope you found this helpful, and we'll see you in the next one.